Allegedly, we are there. Allegedly, we are live. So I'm going to watch because I'm seeing the... Yes. Well, no, maybe. Hold on.
No.
Nope. Yeah, we are.
Woo woo.
So here, I will pop it in the chat so you can actually see it. Whoa, mute that. Okay.
Yeah. Will it mess up with it? Will it mess it up?
No. All right. Here, let me pop it into the chat for you.
All right.
So, but boom.
Okay.
So I'm gonna post this video on various social media places.
Ooh, it's like it has a lag. I'm gonna log out of it.
Yep. There's definitely a lag. Oh, Jason just told me we're live. So hi, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes.
We're just
excellent.
trying to get everything all organized for those of you who have joined us.
Yes. So, comments are turned off. I don't want to turn comments off.
This is what happens when you run a live podcast all by yourselves with two psychology professors.
Yes, I would agree with that. Oh, no. So you know what we're going to do? Because comments are turned off.
Just turn them on?
Well, I mean, that would be great, but I don't know how to do that. So we could have people email me.
Yes.
Huh. Yeah. Also, Regan's not here yet. Our guest is going to be here in 2 minutes. For those of you who are tuning in, you are watching us figure out the stuff.
And it will be great when we figure out the stuff.
Yep. I feel good about all of that.
Good. I'm glad. Should I stall? Should I?
No, I mean, we can
about
start,
something.
we can just talk to people. How are you? I guess is the most important thing.
You know, I am terrific. I'm doing good. Trying to be doing good, I guess, is what it is. I'm trying my best.
I get that. Yeah. All right. I should just, again, for people who are joining us, as you are joining, know that Regan Gurung is going to join us soon. Right now, we're just in the intro phase. You'll know when it starts. We'll start recording and all that stuff. But right now, you're just listening to Georjeanna and I work through all of our insecurities. We should just turn this into some therapy. How are you? You having a midlife crisis yet? I'm having a midlife crisis.
No, I'm far past midlife. At least I hope I am far past midlife, or else I'm going to be like the oldest person on earth.
Here's Regan.
I am not having a midlife crisis. I am perhaps maybe having an closer to end of life crisis, but I hope I'm not close to my end of life either.
Right. Here's Regan. He's joining us.
Yay!
Regan!
Hi!
Hey.
Love it. What a lovely background. Wow.
You know, I got
tell
it
Regan right out of the gate. We are already live streaming, Regan. So I want you to know that we already have viewers before you get talking.
You mean before I drop any bombs of any sort? You mean?
That is exactly what I wanted to rule out. I didn't want Regan to come in here and start talking about bathroom habits or anything like that.
You know,
as he is apt to.
Right. You know, I mean, it's not like there are some other friends I can name who's wanting that one would have to be extremely relevant for. So
right.
Absolutely. Well, I love your background, Regan, and I was going to say that I chose a background because I am in between the two of you in this fabulous photo of some of my adult friends that from UWGB. This is a picture from a few years ago but typically I have a picture that I took very close to where you are in front of, is typically my background. Maybe I should show you, or not at the moment. I'm not going to, but I typically have a background that I took when I was visiting you in Oregon.
Well,
So
and I was super tempted to wear my Carlton shirt, and or B, at least use that great faculty shot of all of us when indeed I did wear my Carlton shirt.
Yes.
well,
That people,
That is
Yeah.
a great picture. I love it. I am one thing I'm going to throw out there is that so for whatever reason, it would appear that the chat is turned off on YouTube. So there are people watching, but the chat is turned off, which is, and I cannot figure out how to turn it on. However, I guess what I'm hoping is that maybe I'm going to just drop my email address throughout when we're ready for questions, and then I can just get emails from people. Does that make sense?
you could, or you could make it your name, that you could rename yourself here.
Yes, I could.
Because yours is short enough that would work, and then we could just continue to remind people that they can
Yeah.
email you. But that means your email is
Wait.
going to be ding ding throughout this
No,
recording.
I turned that email off. I have my phone if we want
Gotcha.
that. But yeah.
Good,
Um,
good.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that quick.
All right, you do that, and then we will get started. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I will like to point out that Georgina, you still look exactly like that picture behind you, and I think Ryan and I have aged a little bit since then. But you are the eternal flame.
Oh, thanks. That just made my day. And maybe we'll talk about how friends can make it friends' days, and maybe that's how you keep friendships alive in adulthood, is just being nice to each other, for goodness sakes.
So many good things. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. Are we ready, Ryan?
Yeah, I think we are. Yes, we are. I should start recording before that happens. Oh, wait, no, people are, I take it back. People are able to post in the chat. I am reading a few things, so people are able to do it. I take it all back. For some reason, I wasn't able to. Thank you to the people who posted in the chat. If you want to just continue to give me positive words of affirmation throughout, I will certainly take them. There is a delay between what we say and when it appears. So yeah, I don't know how long it is, but it's a bit. So I'm going to start recording so that we actually have this fabulous thing documented, and then I'm going to do my intro, and then we're going to get right into it. Does that sound good?
That sounds excellent.
Awesome. So thank you, attendees. We are going to get started really in just about a second here. Hold on. All right, psychology nerds, and welcome to a special live virtual episode of Psychology and Stuff, the podcast out of Phoenix Studios at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. I'm Ryan Martin, one of your hosts, and I'm here as always with my friend and co-host, chair of the UW Green Bay Psychology Program, Dr. Georjeanna Wilson-Doenges. How's it going, G?
It is going terrific. So we're recording this in the month of December, and I'm not typically like a huge fan of winter, but doing this live episode just brought some early holiday cheer to my dislike of the winter weather coming.
I feel good about snow. I really want some snow. I'm just going to put that out there right now. We have talked about this before on the podcast, Georgina, and I feel like I've been let down by the weather the last couple of winters because it's been mostly cold with not a lot of snow. So I'm really hoping for revenge of snow this year. If that's probably a thing, right? Revenge of the snow. It sounds like
the revenge of the snow. Well, that's why, Georgina, I see you do have what looks like a snowflake.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
Very
Yeah.
nice snowflake motif there. Yeah.
That is
Excellent.
our guest, ladies and gentlemen, who
Oh,
hasn't
yeah,
been
that-
introduced yet. But I'm going to introduce him right now. So we have got how to make friendships on the podcast today. We are, as I mentioned, streaming right now to YouTube, to our live audience. The episode is actually part of our Common Cause theme this year on loneliness, connection, and community. We're going to be taking questions from the virtual audience we have toward the end of the show. If you're watching, I hope you'll let us know what you're wondering via the comment box. Our guest today, who you've already heard, but I haven't introduced, is a social psychologist by training with research encompassing social, health, and pedagogical psychology. He has over 100 articles and 15 co-authored, co-edited books. He's a professor in the School of Psychological Science at Oregon State University, the Oregon State University. That's a thing
That's
they
right.
probably do there, right?
That's right.
Today, he's going to be talking to us about how to form adult friendships. It's Dr. Regan A.R. Gurung. How are you, Regan?
Excellent. Doing really, really well. And it seems so strange to have that long introduction when we spent so many years where we all flew the same green flag. So, for those few listeners who are not long-term fans of the show, yes, this is year 4 of actually flying the Oregon State flag. And isn't that crazy? 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. Wow.
I have long said time doesn't make sense in the pandemic anymore, but also I think that keeping to our theme, that is a function of aging as well, is that time starts to warp itself. So in keeping with the theme of the show on adult friendships, I am excited to welcome a good friend of mine to come here and talk about it all with us. So, G, this episode was your idea. Do you want to pitch a little intro for us?
Absolutely. So I read a Psychology Today post, like recently in the past months, and it got me thinking. Actually, it caused me to reflect on my friendships as an adult, and it just made me think about Regan. I'm like, wow, because some of Regan's very early work, like right outside of graduate school, focused on social support, which in a way is a synonym for friendship, although maybe Regan would disagree with me on that one, but it could be. And I was thinking, well, this would be a really fun conversation. Plus, I really enjoy seeing my friends, even if it is virtually, and talking about fun and cool things. And so that's how this episode happened. And so I think I would like to start the episode by asking Regan that question. What about social support? Is it the same thing as friendship? And can we launch from there forward?
Yeah, there's so much in there, Georjeanna, and let me just unpack by saying a few different things. So right off the bat, I think just because you have friends does not necessarily mean you have social support. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's so important for us to hear. And because really, when we talk about social support, and I love the way you went all the way back to my dissertation stuff, because when I did in grad school, that was the first time I dug into social support, and I've been studying it in almost everything I do, whether it's been health psychology or even teaching and learning. That social support becomes so important, right? And quick tangent that I'll quickly go on and come back. Whether it's the social support between teachers, I mean, the three of us have had so many conversations about teaching and learning, right? We were there for each other in supporting our teaching and learning, support in health, but also just, the support in everyday life. So a good place to start, social support, the feeling that you're esteemed, valued, and cared for, right? And immediately you should say that feeling of esteemed, valued, and cared for, well, your friends should give you that. But I think the reason I started by saying it's not always the case is because sometimes, given the relationships that we may have with our friends, we may not always feel that, esteemed, valued, and cared for. The other thing I want to say is that when we think about social support, and Georgina, this is getting at your question about the distinction. But I think the key thing to think about with social support, and I love talking about this distinction, because when you and I, when any of us ask each other, do we have support? I think we've got to realize the fact that there are at least 3 different types of support, right? That definition I gave you is the very emotional, that I feel like you value me. But in life, there's also informational support. And I think sometimes we get stressed out and we just need information. And we sometimes have friends who are great at information, right? And that's a different kind of support. And I think the third type that I think about is what's often referred to as instrumental, right? I actually every now and then, Ryan, I think about that day when you moved into your house and we all drove over with our cars and vans and helped you move, right? And likewise, when I moved from one Green Bay place to the other, a whole bunch of you showed up, or people showed up, and the job was done in hours. Now that's instrumental support. It's and there are times when you may love somebody dearly, but that person just doesn't need your love and esteem. They freaking need your car to get someplace, right? And I'm glad you gave me that early warning about being live, Ryan. See, I can, down, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. So I just think it's this. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, go ahead. I just think that I love that distinction. Friends don't always mean support. And even when we look at our friends, we get different things from different people.
Now is a good time to just tell people that, yes, so there was the time that you both came over and helped me move that day. But also there was a time where my car broke down a good hour outside of town. And I had both, my wife was there, but also our young kids. And I had to call on a friend to come out, drive an hour, maybe a little more than an hour to pick us up and bring us home back to Green Bay. So, I mean, yeah. And it was one of those moments where I thought, oh God, thank God I have got friends. That person is in that picture behind you, I should mention, Georjeanna. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, that actually speaks to part of one of my questions, Regan, is kind of, it's sort of been answered, but just more broadly, even just thinking about, so why should we be trying to make more friends as we get older? Or maybe it's not about making more friends. Maybe it's about sort of continuing to foster the relationships of the friends we have. What's the upside? Especially because I know there are people out there who are going to say, I'm an introvert. I don't want to socialize. Why do I have to?
All right. And so here's the thing, Ryan, I'm actually going to say that I don't think more friends is the answer. And this is particularly good for the introverts amongst us.
This is good news because I'm wildly unpopular. And so being able to, knowing that I don't have to make any more friends is a good thing.
And it's all about quality. All right. So let me give the two of you and our listeners a very simple question to mull on. All right. And here's the question. I'll give you one question and there are a couple of variations, but here's the simple question. Let's go off what Ryan said, right? If your car were to break down an hour from home, and you really needed somebody to come pick you up, how many people can you think of who you think would do it? And just mull on that. And that seemingly simple question is actually one of 6 questions on a very well-used perceptions of social support scale. And it's actually a scale I used in my dissertation research and after. And what you actually do is you really have the person write down the initials so that they're not just making it up. I mean, you guys may go, oh yeah, 5, 6, 10 people will easily do it. No. Think about the initials. Who are those people? Picture them. Think about their initials. And what the research shows is that the more people that who you can think of who would do it, the better off you are. Now, that seems to suggest that more is better. But what the researchers also showed that it's actually the quality of those relationships. As long as you have 2 or 3 people who will come to your aid when you need be, right? That's better off. I'm going to take that even a notch up. Now, the three of us here vary in age. There are some youngins amongst us, Ryan Martin. There are some oldies, myself, right? And who knows how old Georjeanna is, right? Fountain of youth. But here's the thing, right? And this goes back to your more friend comment, right? Here's the really fascinating thing about, and I think this is like the theme of the show here, so I'll get right to it. An interesting thing happens as we age. And not to get too technical and jargony on you, but there's something called the social emotional selectivity theory. And what this goes on about, and I love this idea, it says, as we get older, and I part about why I love this is it gets me to evoke a UW Green Bay phrase that is tattooed on the outside of the library. Okay, so the next time you go to Cochrane, you'll see this on the plaque outside. But here's what it is, right? As we get older, we, ready for it, sift and winnow through our friends. And we select, I just love that phrase. Anyway, we select those friends who are supportive, but by the same token, aren't causing us emotional hardship. Because the reality is there are some people who drain us. And what the research shows is that healthy aging, healthy getting older, and for those if you youngins out there, even as you move to 30 and move to 40, this actually still comes in. Some of us have moved beyond with higher numbers than that. But even if you're moving to the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, the reality is there should be that sifting and winnowing where you are spending your time on those people who are giving you a lot, who aren't draining a lot. And to take it one last step up, as long as we are supported by what's also referred to, yeah, there you go. That was a good one. Oh man, I for those people listening, you should see that. There's that.
This is
sorry. Brief aside. Brief aside, Ryan. What do you have behind you? And I'll finish my thought.
Okay, I just uploaded, for those of you watching, you get to see this. For those of you listening, I just uploaded a picture that of Regan and I over in Studio Arts, but it was an edited photo by our good friend Dan Meinhardt, who gave us both mustaches, I think gave us both berets, and so on. So it is a very, very nice. I wanted a picture of being a friend for this, so here's what we've got. Okay, go ahead.
And I think that's when, and you when you move your head, you will see that we are outside Allison Gates's office.
That's right.
Yep, there you go, Allison Gates's office. Yeah. Anyway, so here's the thing, right? Going back to that, don't worry if you don't have a lot. The reality is, as long as you have what's referred to as a social convoy of friends that are moving, right? As you move through life, you are surrounded by this convoy of friends that will come to you no matter what. That's really the key. And I think I love that fact is every now and then look around and go, hey, any sifting and winnowing needed? Or, how's my convoy doing? And I think especially over the last 3 or 4 years, especially during the pandemic times, that was a really good time to figure out, what you have in your head, because a lot of those physical things changed, right? We didn't see people with the same frequency. And I think that's when you see this big uptick in, I may not be seeing these people frequently, but am I making more contact and communication with them? So again, to summarize that little section there, what's really important is the quality of friends, being sure that you have a convoy of friends, and then, and I'm going to use this next word without Machiavellian intent, cultivating your friends so that you have that supportive convoy around you.
And I think that comes with maybe a piece of advice about how you might end toxic relationships or poisonous relationships, or whatever you might think about it, is that as you age, you've accumulated more and more of these kinds of relationships. The more people you know, the more people you meet and work with, or socialize with, or belong to a community with. And really, that's a skill to decide that a person is not good for moving your convoy forward and
Right.
like trying to extract yourself from those kinds of relationships is challenging. But I hear you making that challenge.
Right. And I think, when I look around, especially higher education right now, but even elsewhere, there's a few places you can look without seeing the use of the word burnout, right? There's a lot of burnout out there, and I want to evoke one of the subcomponents of burnout to the context that we're discussing, right, in our friendships, because I think it's really key. That one component of burnout is something referred to as depersonalization. Okay. And very often the depersonalization component of burnout basically says, look, if all of a sudden you realize that you are not looking forward to serving the people you normally serve or work with, you're burnt out. And I think there's a good message there for us to take when we think about our friends. Right. I mean, is that email from a friend, or is that, hey, can we chat request actually making you respond, oh man, no. Now, if that automatic response is, oh no, not again, you could actually be burnt out, and so I want to say, I'm giving you a way to attribute it differently. It not just maybe that's not a good friend, but especially given what's going on, you just may be burnt out, where any other time you'd be, oh yeah, of course, I'd love to. But if it becomes that, oh gosh, no, not now, I just don't have time for this. That also, I think, is it could be also more you being burnt out, with the bottom line being you just need to take some time and see how things are. So before you start pruning all those friendships because you're burnt out, really think about the big picture of what could be going on.
I'm curious how much of this you think is intentional effort that people do, or things that just happen sort of organically as they get older. I mean, it seems to me like a lot of relationships just sort of run a course, and that people sort of, and I guess maybe what I would advocate here is that people be more intentional about some of these things. But what are your thoughts on that, Regan?
Yeah, so first off, I want to start with where you ended, which is I think being intentional is pretty important, because it is very easy to get caught up in life. Right. I have both my kids are prepare yourself in high school right now, and I say prepare yourself because I can still remember. Yeah,
Sorry, I mean, that doesn't seem right.
I can still remember the day 16 years ago when Ryan and Tina came over, and Liam, my son, had this green tube looking like some sort of RoboCop, because, and I mean, that was the day they saw him. He had this little green tube down his shirt to, fend off jaundice or something like that. I don't know what it was, but that was like 16 years ago, right? Yeah. Anyway, they're both in high school. And I bring this up because our lives are just so busy. Everybody in the household is up till 11 or 11:30 doing something or the other every day. And, life's busy, and you go, where do friends fit in? And I think you've got to say to yourself, I need to make time for friends. And I will say, Georjeanna, first off, I should say, it was almost ironic when you asked about this podcast, because I have been very open recently, telling my friends that I don't think I've been a good friend recently, because I just don't, I mean, both of you probably know that I'm not very good with texting, right? People will text me and I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, I have gotten better. Notice I responded to both your texts this morning, right? Yeah. That was a huge deal. But I think, Ryan, that goes back to that intentionality. I am more intentional about looking at my phone. I am more intentional about text. And I'll just share with you an anecdote from literally 2 weeks ago. Out of the blue, I got a text from a friend. And it was a group text, 2 other friends and me. And I turned to Martha, my wife, and I said, oh my gosh, this almost brought tears to my eyes. I got a text from a friend, and I know some of you text all the time, but I'm just so not a texter that this random text of this friend commenting on something I just thought was so neat. I'm like, yeah, I need to do this more. So I think there are those things, Ryan, that I do think sometimes we say we've got to do this more. Now, I don't think, I think some people go to extremes. I can still remember somebody who said to me, my husband wants to have guys' night every week. Is that natural? Or does he just not want to hang out with me? I'm like, everybody's different, right? But maybe a guy's night every week may be a little much, but you know what? It's whatever it takes for your friendships, right? And sometimes maybe that level of contact is important. So there's variance, and what you do will vary from person to person, but totally want to underline, because life can so easily get us caught up in things, some sort of intentionality, I think, is pretty important.
And one of the pieces of advice that the Psychology Today article, I will give credit to Andrea Bonnier for this one, is that she says that we should ride out transitions. And I think that was kind of relevant to what you just said, Regan, about, we get busy, but it's busy with different things depending on what stage of life you're in. The busyness can, be school as a high schooler, like your kids are busy in a different way than I'm busy as an older person, or, and I think we need to, if you want to maintain that friendship, you just have to ride out the changes in life that happen.
Well, and I'm going to ask a question of both of you, right? Which is, and this sort of piggybacks off, Ryan, your original question about intentionality, but especially for both of you, and I'll give you an example too. Ask yourselves, what are those things that you are intentional about as far as friendship goes? Because I'm sure everybody would love to hear it. And I'll give you one thing right there about transitions, Georjeanna. I think something that I've started doing, is putting in a few more traditions. And I'll give you a very goofy tradition. But here at Oregon State, one of my new traditions has been every last week of the term, which is right now, mind you, we're in finals week right now. But every last week, I get together with a friend of mine, and we do what's called Meat Fest. Both of our households eat very little meat at home. Both of our households are going much more plant-based, but both this individual and I really, really enjoy meat. So once a term, we get together without assembled households and just go eat a lot of meat. Now, similar, Ryan, you may remember traditions like Legend Larry's, right?
Yes.
There have been times when I've seen Ryan put down more chicken wings than I would like to mention on this podcast, right? But I think it was those kind of traditions, I think, that make sure you don't have to do it all the time. You could be super busy in between, but then, and I think to a large extent, and Martha reminded me about this cool tradition when we were just chatting traditions. But the Fall 50 men's team would get together and do Legend Larry's and wings, and we didn't do it every week. We didn't, but we did it enough where it was something where even when life got really busy, you still, sort of do that. And I wish I could, for my background right now, pull up. There's this really great shot where Andrew, Adolfo, Ryan, Chuck, and myself are in our sweater vests or sweaters. I think it was at the Union. I think it was at the Union. It was at the Union Hotel, which was another tradition where we would hit the Union Hotel every once in a while. So, Georjeanna, those traditions are important for friendships. And you people, what are some of your traditions or things you do to keep those friendships going?
Go, Ryan.
Okay. So maybe you have seen this, but I am on a bit of a increased socialization friendship journey right now. And I can be honest about it, because part of why you may have seen this, I've shared a little bit on social media about this trying to be more intentional right now about just socializing more, spending more time with friends. I think for reasons, Regan, that you already kind of highlighted, busyness, kid activities, stuff like that. I don't have high schoolers, but I have middle schoolers who are very, very active. And I have definitely just socialized less than I want to. And I have good friends that I routinely say, hey, we really need to get together and have that beer, or we really, and we've been saying that now for honestly 2 or 3 years without actually doing it. And so I'm right now trying to be more intentional about that. I would say there are particular friends that we have like regular traditions. There's a group that I tend to go to get food with almost every Friday night, that I connect with. There are others that, that I connect with maybe over sports. And so like we don't talk for say 6 months, but then, football season starts or the World Cup starts, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is our thing now that we share this experience. I think honestly, it's the only thing that keeps me paying attention to the NFL right now, is the fact that I've got some friends that our relationship is very much built around that. So I don't know if they're traditions the same way. We don't have a meat fest though. By the way, I'm in. Like, if this is the kind of thing I can travel for, I'm on board. But
me too. Let's go.
Let's have a virtual meat
city,
fest.
like in the middle of the country, and just eat meat and then go home.
Sounds good. What about you, Georjeanna? What are your traditions?
Well, I recently revived a tradition that maybe I hadn't done during the pandemic, because maybe I was burnt out, like Regan, like you mentioned earlier. But every Thanksgiving morning, I try and send some of my friends who maybe I haven't been very good at communicating with, things about them that I appreciate. And like just to take a moment, and I guess I don't need a national holiday to do such a thing, but it just seemed like a really easy and natural thing to do, like just to send a short note. And so I think like things like that, just remembering to be kind, is a tradition that I think I was better at before the pandemic. And I'm trying to get that back, just doing the like small things. And that's actually one of the other pieces of advice, is to remember the little things. Remember things that the person likes or that they laugh about. I mean, we've been sharing a lot of like things that we have, the three of us have done as friends together. And it's remembering those things, reminding people of those things, sending a text and being like, hey, Regan, I was just thinking about you in this, in a group chat. Those kinds of things, I think, go a long way to helping maintain friendships throughout a lifetime.
So here's, along those lines, I always like pragmatic, practical stuff, right? Here we are early in December. To some extent, it's nice when you get Christmas cards, but, especially given the background you can see with forestry and stuff like that, I've got a lot more sensitive about, large numbers of paper being sent all over the countryside. But all of that said, I think even before the onslaught of Christmas wishes, right? I think this is a really good time, or every once in a while, and this is a really good time, where to just sit down and ask yourself, who have I not been in touch with for some time? And quite honestly, at least 2 or 3 times a year, and in really, really busy years, at least once a year before the holidays, I try and sit down and write a list of the people that I really want to be in touch with. And it could be an email, it could be a Facebook message. In some small cases, it's a card. But I think that's something all of us can and should do more of, because I can almost guarantee you just thinking about those people is going to make you feel good, and they're going to feel great when they hear from you. And that's just the beginning of stuff. So,
it's funny. So that we have a question in the chat I want to get to here in a second. But before we do, I wanted to mention that, this is sort of informs that question I asked earlier about the intentionality, because I am intentional about so much that I do in my life, probably to a fault, right? But when I sit down and map out my semester, or when I map out, I am very specific about like, this is how many miles I want to run. This is what I want to eat each week. Like these are things that are probably borderline pathological, but still, like, you know, the habits I have. This is a place, Regan, where I am not at all intentional. And I can see how I probably should be, you know, that mapping out in the same way, like, these are people I want to spend time with. These are people that I want to make sure I'm staying in touch with somehow, and not just leave it up to chance the way I so often do.
Right. And you know, again, before you get to the question, but still, I think, especially because something I've noticed as you get older, you know,
As I
we
get
make
older specifically, or as
well,
other
as we, right?
Okay.
As we get, I mean, something I love thinking about is I love thinking back to how much it, you know, right now, anybody who's in college is probably saying, oh, I'm so busy, right? And you probably are. But dear college listeners, as busy as you are right now, wait till you get other things and more things to deal with, right? And there are many times when I look back and I go, oh man, I wish I was back in college with the fewer things that I had to deal with and, you know, the world issues. But here's the good news though. And Georjeanna, you mentioned there are times, and you know, there were times you felt burnt out. I think here's the best thing that I love is, and that I can attest to because I've seen it happen, is even with long periods of time, many of our friends don't necessarily disappear. And one of the most heartwarming things I've realized is, and I'll mention this in the context of some of my high school friends, one of the most heartwarming things is even after the gap of years, when I've walked the walk of what I talked and got back in touch with some people, it's almost like picking it up how it was, you know, and I realized that they had life happen too, you know, and just like I'm surfacing from a whole bunch of years, they too had things happen and they too are more ready to do this kind of stuff. So, you know, that's the really, really good news is you'll find that, yes, to a large extent, a large number of your high school and college friends will be there for you, even if you're not, you know, talking to them all the time. Even though I think the world has changed where, you know, when I see how much my kids talk to their friends, right? That the texting is so, it's like they have their finger on each other's pulse. You know, it's almost like they're to evoke the peripheral that I've been watching. They're like connected by technology, right? And unlike sci-fi where it's actually in your skin, holding that phone and the extent to which they hold their phone is almost like it's in your skin, you know, but it really makes you think, oh, if I don't speak to them for a while, is our friendship going to be the same? And I think the good thing about true friendship and friendship that has been cultivated and strengthened is that it's there. And I'll continue that kind of cultivation analogy by saying, you know, sometimes even trees in our garden fall into poor growth, but just some pruning and fertilizing and work, and they will flourish again. So too, friendships, my friend.
All right, so great question in the chat, along with some spam, but really great question in the chat. Jenny wants to know, said, my students talk a lot about red flags and green flags in seeking romantic partners. Could you discuss a few red and green flags of potential friendships for adults? So what do we think are red and green flags for friendships in adults? Someone's who's going to come help me move. That's a green flag.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, you know, the first thing that jumps to my mind is, and this is borne out by, you know, there are some research on friendships really literally looks at two kinds of ratios. Okay. The ratios between positive and negative interactions, and many of you may have run into this in marital relationships. You know, the reality is you can't necessarily always be positive, but as long as the ratio of positive to negative, and this is John Gottman's work, is 5-to-1, you know, that's a healthy marital relationship. I think that's one level of the answer in friendships. You want your green flag to red flag ratio to be in the 5-to-1 range. Okay, expecting no red flags, that's not realistic, but you want way more green flags than red flags. So that's answer number one, right?
I'm so happy that there's a thing I can actually track in a spreadsheet, right? I mean, I should probably at the end of every day just be writing down like interactions with Georjeanna. 3 were positive, 1 was negative.
That's right. But and actually, as funny as that sounds, you take that to a more realistic level, you will have some friends, and thankfully not even one comes to my mind, this is great news, where you will actually have more negative interactions with that person than positive. And those specific flags may vary. In some cases, they are always asking you for money and never giving you stuff. In some cases, they're always asking for your time and they need to chat, and never ask you how you're doing, kind of stuff, so what it is will vary with the person. But I think that sad bottom line thing is the same. It's watch that ratio, and don't expect all green flags. That's not how the world works. But make sure you keep your red flags, and I think that 5-to-1, I mean, the Gottman relationship research is pretty solid, replicated, robust. I'm going to go with that 5-to-1 ratio.
What do you think, Georjeanna? Do you have red flags and green flags you can think of in friendships?
I was thinking about like one thing that I wanted to ask Regan, and maybe this could be like the end, like we can wrap it up. Thinking about how friendships impact your health. Because I know that like health psychology is one of your passions, Regan, and a statistic that I read said that like poor quality social support is the mortality risk equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I was like, oh! And so when I think about like red flags, like if that has the health equivalent of smoking almost a pack a day of cigarettes, then that is something that I want to avoid. And then also like supportive friendship, like green flag friends are a great predictor for longevity. And and so I wonder if you have a thought about that.
Yeah, so two fun empirically driven thoughts. Number one, I think there's really great epidemiological studies coming out of Europe where they track health data much better than we do here in America. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when they compared 20 different predictors of health, and they put a whole bunch of physiological predictors in there, weight, smoking, drinking, diet, social support was in the top 2. Everything else in the top 5 was physiological things, diet, weight, smoking, alcohol, but social support was the one non-physical physical thing that was in there. So that's point number one. The second stat that I love is this is a more recent study that I'm thinking about. As far as longevity goes, having a happy partner, having a happy partner predicts your longevity, and I think I like that because it nicely says, look, it's not just what you're getting out of the friendship, but it's what both of you are getting out of it. If you have a friend who's working real hard to give you support all the time and you're not giving anything back, yeah, you may do relatively well, but not as well as if that friend is happy as well. So.
Awesome.
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is probably a good way to wrap things up. Regan, for people who want to know more about you and your work, where can they find out more about you or even follow you on social media?
Yeah, I think ReganGurung.com is my webpage, which has a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, Regan A.R. Gurung on Twitter, still there. I'm still on Twitter, Regan A.R. Gurung. Yeah, I'm hanging in there. But yeah, ReganGurung.com. But I think, just my name and my webpage pops up, and social media and Instagram that I'm trying out. But yeah, lots of really neat stuff. And you're right, it's health psych, it's social psych, it's it's just a fascinating, day-to-day life, and how intentional we are can make such a big difference.
Well, this is, I think I would argue, this is a part of health that I think we often sort of ignore, right? We tend to think of it being more tied to mental health, and of course it is, but the obvious links between these different things are very, very real and very important. Georjeanna, how about you? Where can people find you?
People can find me everywhere except Twitter.
You're not there anymore, huh?
No, I'm not there anymore at GEORJEANNAWD. So Georjeanna WD. Excellent.
People can find me not just at Legend Larry's, although they can find me there. They can also find me on social media at Anger Professor, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can come there. You can also find Psych and Stuff on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's at Psych and Stuff. That's a good place to ask questions. You can request topics for episodes, all that stuff. Psychology and Stuff is a production of Phoenix Studios at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. The executive producer is Ryan Martin, and the production manager is Rachel Scray. Our audio production coordinator is Bill Salick, and our graphic designer is Kimberly Fleece. Special thanks to our guest today, Dr. Regan A.R. Gurung. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also head over to our website, uwgb.edu/podcast, to check out past episodes of this and all our shows. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and I'm here with my co-host, Georjeanna Wilson-Doenges. Keep being amazing.
Woohoo!
Yeah, all right. I'm going to stop recording. We are still live on YouTube, though, so I should end that. But first, I just want to say thank you to the people who signed up and who are still watching. It means a lot that you came here today. Great questions, and I appreciate you taking the time. Even past 3-6 Fun, who just kept telling us about adult dating sites. Thank you for thank you for being here.
Not the same kind of friends.
On that.
Yes. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna end the live stream, but thank you all.